All right, guys, welcome to our first ever goal setting webinar. I've done this presentation multiple times in the gyms. We've done workshops, typically January and July, centered around the Transformation Challenge. And we wanted to do that again this year, but we're growing and we were trying to figure out how to get me around to multiple places. And so we decided to do a webinar. And hopefully that way you can watch from the comfort of your own home. Looks like we have a bunch of viewers on already. Hopefully more will join us as we go. And hopefully you got your workout in today. You've gotten dinner and you're settled in front of your computer and ready to talk about goal setting. So first of all, who we have on the line is our 6 stores, obviously, and all the clients coming from our 6 stores, but we've also extended the invitation out to some of our franchises that are open now. So we have Montgomery, Brentwood in Nashville, Belmead in Nashville, Raleigh, North Carolina, and Huntsville, all tuned in to this. And then anybody who has our app has the link as well. So welcome to the goal setting workshop. Bear with me a bit. Like I said, I'm used to doing this flesh and blood. I love public speaking. I love getting up and talking. But when I do that, I get to interact with you guys. I see your body language. I get to walk around and talk. And so I'm a little more confined today. I'm in the conference room down here at the corporate office, and it's just me and Daniel is my technical wizard, make sure that we don't crash. And while I'm thinking about that, in case something does happen and we have technical difficulties, Daniel will upload the link to the WAD app, the correct link. So if you get knocked off, just go back to the app and go to the download link and you should be able to catch right back up. And then also make sure that you click on the PDF that goes along with what I'll be talking tonight, because it'll keep you engaged, it'll keep it interactive. I'm a big believer of fill in the blanks. I really appreciate that about my pastor at church, that I can always follow along by filling in the blanks, and it keeps me engaged. So did the same thing for you guys tonight. And then also, if you've attended one of the workshops in the past, this is going to be much of the same information, because ultimately I looked at it and thought about tweaking it and reworking it, but really all I have is my experience and what I've learned over the years and the stories where goal setting has impacted me. That's what I have to share. So Socrates says we learn in layers, and so hopefully if you've been through before, maybe you'll pick up something tonight that you didn't the first time, or maybe even you'll remember something again and say, you know, I did that for a while and it worked. Why did I stop doing it? Maybe this can be that reminder for you. So, like I said, not a ton of new information tonight, but I think it's powerful. I know from in the past, I've gotten amazing testimonials from people who've come to the workshop, implemented the tools and the systems that I'm going to talk about tonight, and have really created change in their life. One of those, Karen Florence, our operations implementer here at the corporate office, came to the first ever goal setting workshop at Homewood. I think it was 2010. And yeah, June of 2010, and she set a goal that night that she would work for Iron Tribe. And what an amazing success story she has been, to not only lose over 40 pounds, but to become such an integral part of our corporate office now. It all started with writing down what she wanted to accomplish and setting that goal. And she'll tell you, I think she even put it in the email she sent out this week, that it changed her life. And she told me before I started tonight that she couldn't wait to watch it again to relearn what helped her so long ago. So let's talk about my background and this journey, how it started for me with goal setting. And to me, it goes back to my freshman year at Auburn University. I had played football my whole life growing up and through high school, and my whole goal in life was to play football at Auburn. Unfortunately, I was a little too slow and a little too weak to get a D1 college offer. Got several small school offers, but not the one to Auburn that I wanted. So I went to Auburn anyway, considered walking on, decided that I didn't really want to be a tackling dummy for 4 years, and ultimately didn't play football at Auburn. So my first couple of quarters at Auburn, I was a typical freshman. I was partying, I was doing the frat thing, I wasn't working out, I wasn't eating well, and I just wasn't happy. I wasn't myself. I wasn't passionate, and tried out for the cheerleading team. Now, the political correct reason is because I wanted to get back in shape and I wanted to be on the field and get a scholarship and all those things. But the real reason is there was this cute girl in my calculus class who said she was trying out one day, and before I really even knew what had happened, I said, oh, really? Me too. And so I found myself out on the practice field trying to throw girls over my head, realizing that I was not near as strong as I needed to be to make that happen. So through some hard work and practice, was able to make the team. But I'll never forget the night I made the team. It's called call-outs, where they announce all the new cheerleaders for the year. And I got announced, and everybody was excited and clapping, and I was looking around at these guys, and I started to get fearful because I was the smallest guy by at least 30 pounds on the squad. And I thought, man, something has got to change. I was 155 pounds soaking wet. And so we broke for summer break, and I had 3 months before I had to report back in August for two-a-days for football season, that first year cheering, my sophomore year in college. So for the first time in my life, I got super, super focused on accomplishing a goal. I got a journal, still have it to this day. I'm going to share several of my journals with you today. And so this is a journal from however many years ago that was, 95. And I set a goal to gain 30 pounds in one summer. In 3 months, 30 pounds. And I said, by the time I set foot back on campus in August, I will weigh 185 pounds. And so what I did the whole summer, and I could show you in this journal, I wrote down everything I ate. I wrote down every single workout. I ate 6 times a day. I worked out 6 times a week. I remember borrowing my stepdad's credit card to buy this new thing on the market called Metrex, which was the first meal replacement on the market back in the early 90s, if you guys remember that. And I was on my way. So that whole summer, just laser focused on 30 pounds, 30 pounds. Sure enough, when I stepped foot back on campus in August for two-a-days, I was 185 pounds on the dot. And I remember walking up to practice and some of the guys doing a double take and looking at me and going, dude, what did you do this summer? And I heard whispers of steroids, and I don't know what this guy's up to, but it was just hard work and a deep desire to not be the smallest guy in the squad. So that was huge for me. But here's the really interesting thing that I found is that even though I was bigger and I had the muscles and I could now do the stunts and everything I needed to do with my partner, the voice in my head didn't really change. The voice in my head was still telling me that I was the smallest guy, I was the weakest guy, I was dropping stunts, I was struggling with my confidence on the field, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. I achieved what I had set out to do. I was the same size as most of the guys on the team, and I was still just really struggling with my confidence. And I remember one time my dad was visiting me. It was early that first year. I think we were about to cheer our first game, and I confided in him. And I said, Dad, you know, I'm struggling with my confidence. I feel like when I'm on the field that I'm not as good as the other guys. I feel like people in the crowd are laughing at me because I'm just not as good as I should be, and just having one of those father-son moments. And my dad just looked at me. He was so confused. He said, son, you are struggling with your confidence? I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm trying to tell you here. He said, you've got it all wrong. You're the guy everybody wants to be. You're the guy in the field. You're the guy with all the muscles. And I was like, Dad, you're saying that because I'm your son, and I mean, come on, that's kind of embarrassing. But what my dad was teaching me, I don't even know that he fully realized it. I certainly didn't realize it till much later in my life. He was teaching me a new affirmation, where before I was thinking all these negative thoughts and I was focusing, I was worrying. He was teaching me a new program to play in my head. And although I didn't really believe what he was saying that night, I started playing that affirmation in my head when I went out to practice, when I went out onto the field. So instead of thinking I'm the smallest, the weakest, I can't do this, I just started to use my dad's word, and I said, I'm the guy everybody wants to be. I'm the guy with the muscles. Now, never in a million years did I think I would be sharing that with people live on the internet, that that's what I was saying to myself back at Auburn, but it changed my life. It changed the way I thought about myself. It changed the way I presented myself. I was very shy throughout high school. Ultimately, I went on to become the mic man at Auburn in front of 85,000 people. And every time I was put in those situations before going out on the field in front of 85,000 people, I would just start to tell myself new beliefs. I'm going to do an amazing job. I'm going to get this crowd on their feet. I'm going to be the best mic man that's ever been at Auburn. Just whatever it took to get me to go out there and perform. And years later, I learned that was a technique called affirmations. We're going to talk about that tonight. But that's where it started for me. And that really changed everything about my life, because once I had the confidence, I realized, man, I really like this thing of being able to overcome limiting beliefs, overcome things, physical limitations, mental limitations. And so I actually went on to gain over 50 pounds in my college career. I started pursuing natural bodybuilding competitions and winning and placing really well in those, which led to people coming up and saying, how do you stay in such great shape? Which led me to personal training, which led me to really the rest of my career, ultimately to Iron Tribe. And so even when you look at Iron Tribe, when I started it 3.5 years ago, and it was just some buddies in a garage, and started to paint a vision of what I could do with this new business model, it was rooted in 1, 3, and 5-year goals. Everybody I've hired, I've run through those goals. We review those goals. We measure them and talk about how we're stacking up against them. And they seemed super, super aggressive at the time, almost embarrassing to write down how big my goals are. But thankfully, 3.5 years in and a little over a year into the franchising process, we are right on pace with what I wrote down just under 4 years ago before launching the Iron Tribe business model. So goal setting has had a profound effect on my life, and I've studied it. I really resonate with people who implement this stuff in their life. One of my all-time favorites, and this may be a little cheesy for you guys because you're going to think of his recent indiscretions, but Arnold is the man. If you want a great book, The Education of a Bodybuilder, because it's simply a guy who implemented this stuff at a super high level. And I'll recommend his book at the end, Total Recall. It's his new biography. But if you just flip through the pages and look at the pictures, the life this guy has lived, an English immigrant who didn't know the language with a funny last name, totally amazing. So as I've studied him, Tony Robbins, Brian Tracy, multiple others, I've refined the process of goal setting and journaling and accountability. And so I want to share some of that stuff with you tonight. And so I'm going to launch into the handout that I gave you now. And so if you have a handout, now would be a good time to break it out. And let's dive in. So obviously, goal setting worked for me. But what about others? You can't really even talk about goal setting without talking about just the foundational study, 20-year longitudinal study that was done in 1953 by Harvard. And they looked at the graduating class of 53 and basically asked them 2 questions. Do you have goals for your life? And do you have a clear written plan for how you're going to achieve them? And what was amazing about it is, first of all, they only found that 3% of the student body were able to give them positive answers to those questions. Yes, I have goals, and yes, I have a clear written plan for how I'm going to achieve them. So they found that 3% of students who had clear written goals with a plan to attain them were worth more financially than the other 97% combined. So the 3% who took the time to set the goals and document their plan were worth more than the entire rest of the student body combined. That's powerful. But what's crazy, and the reason that study is still used and still referenced today, what is that, 40 years later, from the time 20 years was done, 73, 40 years later, we're still talking about it, is because any other study that's been done has found the exact same type of results. And financial is just easy to qualify. But there's so many other metrics. They're happier, they're more content, their families are stronger. So it all comes back to goal setting and having a clear written plan. So we hear this all the time, right? We should set goals. We should write them down. When you got on the app tonight and you saw that I was doing a webinar on goal setting, probably wasn't the first time you've heard of it. So we hear this. Why don't we set goals? Statistics show us that only 5% of us have goals and less than 3% write them down. Again, consistent with the study back in '53 from Yale, only 3% of us write them down. So why is that? We know we should. I think it comes down to 4 reasons. Number one, and again, guys, I'm going directly off the notes that we put online, so if you print those off or put them on your computer, you can follow along. Number one, I don't think we truly understand the importance of setting goals. Chances are, if you grew up in a household where it wasn't taught, they didn't value it and teach you it, you never really understood the importance, some of the things that I'm sharing with you today, how life-changing this process can be. One of our athletes at the Homewood location, Mibby Rush, shared with me, and I love this, that growing up, every Christmas, her dad would sit around the table with the kids, make them set their goals, and go and put it in their Christmas stocking. And the next year when they were decorating, they pulled those Christmas stockings out. Each kid, first thing they would do after decorating the house, would pull out what they wrote last year, sit back down around the table, and talk about what they had achieved that year versus what they said they were going to achieve. That's just powerful stuff right there. And if you know Mibby, you know she's a living example of someone who lives this stuff out every day. And it started from a father who took the time to teach that at home. So number one, don't understand the importance. Number two, you don't know how. Is this just simply writing something down, throwing it in a drawer, maybe finding it a couple years later and like, oh yeah, forgot about that. That didn't happen. Is that what this is? It's not. There's a clear plan, process, and system for setting and achieving your goals. And I think it's amazing that we can spend 18 years in our school system and never get a single hour of training on something as fundamental as goal setting. Now, I will say, and I was impressed this year, Shades Cahaba, where my kids go to school, my 10-year-old came to me and said, our teacher asked us to set 3 New Year's resolutions this year. And she only set one, but she took that first step, and she said, I want to save more money in my savings account this year. And I was able to use that to say, well, Caroline, that's a good goal, but how will you know if you hit it? Save more, here's $1. You hit it, no big deal. So I was able to teach her specific, measurable, actionable, timely goals, and I said, let's try again. I didn't know if she learned the lesson, but the next day, she surprised me. She came to me, she said, Dad, I thought about what you said. I'm going to save $125 in my savings account by the end of the year. Now that's a good goal. So thank you, Shades Cahaba, for investing in my 10-year-old and teaching her to set goals. So why don't we set them? Number one, we don't know the importance. Number two, we don't know how. Number three, and this is a big one, fear of rejection. And this is the fear of someone telling you that you cannot achieve your goal, or worse yet, laughing at your goal. And so this is why I'm very careful when I'm teaching people to set goals, is be careful who you share your goals with. I think it's important that you do share them, but that you share them with the right people. Share them with people who are goal setters themselves, who will hold you accountable to goal setting. If you know Chuck Andrews at the 280 location, not only is he my financial planner, but he's an accountability partner for me. Chuck is the kind of guy that I want to share my goals with because, number one, he's going to call me out if I'm not doing right, and number two, he's going to remember to ask and encourage me throughout the year. So you want to find people like that in your life that you can share your goals with. But don't just share with the world at large, because people will laugh, people will reject you, people will tell you that it can't be done. No one's ever done it before. Who are you to think you can do that? But find people in your life who believe in you, who are going places, and who, most importantly, are goal setters themselves. And then, so fear of rejection, number 3. Number 4, fear of failure. Potentially the greatest single obstacle for success in adult life. What we have to do, we have to understand that failure is part of the success process. And we know this. We know that you look at an infant, doesn't just go from crawling to walking without failing a few times. Yet we're never going to yell at the infant and tell them that they're stupid or they're never going to get it because they fall down a few times. Or learning to ride a bike, you learn by falling. It's the same thing in life. You set some goals, you hold yourself accountable, you may or may not hit them, but you learn from it and you get better. That's the whole process of being successful in life. So one of the authors I read early in my career, Robert Kiyosaki, wrote a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then about 20 versions of that same book, which I have all of them in a library. But one of the things he talked about is fear is an acronym, false evidence appearing real. And I always liked that. And then he also said, because so many people told him, 1 in 5 businesses fail. So in his mind, he knew, well, that just means I have to be willing to start 5 businesses to have a successful one. So fear to me means fail early and responsibly. If I'm going to fail, let's go ahead and get it out of the way, and let's get on to this success thing. So a bunch of different ways to look at fear, but there's no doubt it can be crippling to setting goals, to setting stretch goals that challenge you, and to really embracing everything that I'm talking about tonight. It's a real obstacle. So what we've learned, you look at any successful life, is that top performers always reach their greatest successes one step beyond where they received their greatest failure. I stayed up late last night and watched Lincoln. Been wanting to watch it, finally rented it. What an amazing story of a man who sold out his entire presidency on getting that 13th Amendment passed to the Constitution. And it looked like it was not going to pass. I mean, all obstacles were in his way of having that happen. And yet he got it pushed through, changed the whole course of our nation. And then the example I put in your notes, Thomas Edison. And you may be aware of this quote, but the context is important too, because he was being interviewed by one of the leading scientific journalists of his time, and the journalist was actually mocking him because he knew how long Edison had been working on the light bulb. And he said, "Mr. Edison, don't you know that man was never meant to go about by iridescent candle? That we were always meant to use a kerosene lantern? How do you feel about this failure?" And Thomas Edison replied, and it's a famous quote, but he said, "Young man, you don't understand how the world works at all. I have not failed. I have successfully identified 5,000 ways that will not work, which puts me 5,000 ways closer to what will work." What an amazing way to look at failure. Every time he failed, in his mind, it was one step closer to success. So what we have to do is understand and embrace the concept that failure is a part of success. Big part of this goal setting process, because you can't let that first obstacle, or that first time you said you weren't going to cheat on your diet, or that first time you said you weren't going to skip another workout, and it happens, you can't just quit. You keep on, you persevere. So we're going to talk about that tonight too. So another form of fear that I definitely want to talk about, and it's insidious, it's constant, we have to guard our minds from it, and that's worry. Worry is a sustained form of fear, and it's caused by indecision, by not making a decision, and we stew on it, and we think about it, and we make it worse than it is. But here's the thing, as soon as we make a decision to act, the fear and the tension and the stress begin to diminish. So some great affirmations that I've used to counteract worry. And I literally use these, I say these in my head. You guys may think I'm crazy by the time this thing's over, but it's been powerful for me. One of them is I act now. Sometimes we're so paralyzed and we feel like we can't make that decision. I know I feel that way, and I'll just start saying, I act now. I act now in my head. Or I'll say, I am decisive, even when I'm not feeling particularly decisive. But I'll say, I am decisive. I am decisive. Or I am responsible. I am responsible. Those three affirmations have been great to keep worry at bay. But one of the exercises that I've used to help me with worry is to do this. Well, first of all, let me back up and stick with the notes here. Worry is negative goal setting. Basically, everything that we're talking about here tonight, all the good stuff, the goal setting, and everything that we can use to change our lives, the complete 180 opposite of that is worry. It's thinking about, talking about, and imagining exactly what we don't want to have happen. How many of us do that? I know that I can be guilty all the time of thinking how it won't work out, how I'm not going to act the right way. And so let me tell you an exercise that has helped me immensely, especially something that I find myself constantly worrying about, can't sleep at night, stewing about. Here's a great exercise. Number one, take a piece of paper. Your journal is a great place to do it. Write down the worst possible outcome. This thing that you're just focused on and making bigger and bigger in your head. What's the worst thing that could happen as a result of this? Write it down. Number two, resolve to accept the worst. Whatever it is, man, yeah, that's pretty bad, but I can accept that. But don't stop there. Number three, work your hardest to make sure that the worst doesn't happen. If you can do those three things, something about getting it out of your head and onto paper makes it finite, makes it manageable. You see the worst thing, and you quit stewing about it in your mind, and it really can stop this insidious worrying that will lead you directly opposite on the path of where we want you to go after tonight. All right, so everything we are or ever will become is a result of the content of our mind. Everything starts right here as an idea, as a dream, as a goal. So we have a job in life. I think that job is to keep very clearly in our minds the people we would like to be and the goals that we would like to accomplish. So how do we do that? We do this by thinking and talking and acting consistently with the person we would like to be, with the attributes and the characteristics that we would like to have. Now, do you see how that's the complete opposite of worrying and the negative side of this? We got to think about who we'd like to be. We have to visualize things working out, things going well, hitting those goals, losing that weight, getting that job, starting that business, and it working out successfully. So two things can help this process. I've talked about one of them already a couple times tonight, and that's affirmations. And there's a lot of science that has gone into the power of affirmations, but it's pretty simple. You believe what you tell yourself, whether it's true or not. And that can go both ways. When you worry and you're making things awful and worse and you're dwelling on it, it becomes true. But on the flip side, if you're telling yourself positive things and you're building yourself up and you're being confident in your approach, affirmations can completely change how you think and talk about yourself. And secondly, visualization. Forming a clear, precise, vivid mental picture of what we want to be. So using affirmations and visualizations are a huge part of accelerating this process. You know, it's interesting. We've never had a winner of the Transformation Challenge that I can remember who hasn't personally come up to me and said, I'm going to be your winner this year. And you know what? I believe those people because I've learned the ones that will come up and boldly tell me that are usually the ones who back it up. And getting to do the articles on the winners and Tribe Vibe TV and interviewing them, this is the things we've heard over and over, that they used affirmations They visualize themselves standing up on the podium, getting the medal. In this case, this year, you can visualize yourself on a cruise with your significant other, so that's a good visualization. But this stuff works, so I challenge you to try it. Use what we're talking about tonight, put it into action. All right, so let's talk about another challenge, and that's change. Change is constant, and it's not going anywhere. We fear it because of the possibility we might be worse off after the change. And so if change is not going anywhere, how do we manage it? And especially this day and age and technology changing so fast, thank God for guys like Daniel and Jim, I certainly can't keep up. But that's change. So how do we manage it? Goals. Goals allow us to control the direction of the changes coming into our life towards improvement and not deterioration. I think about it like this, pretty simple example. But if you're in a plane, you're taking off from California, and your destination is New York. When you take off, the pilot sets the autopilot for New York, and the entire flight is a series of the plane getting off course and course correcting. The wind, the turbulence blowing off course and course correcting. And eventually, you land on a dime in your runway at New York because of the end result on that autopilot. That's how our brains are. If we will lock in to our brain the goal and use the affirmations and the visualizations, when the change comes, and inevitably it will, when the obstacles come, when you wake up in the morning and you didn't have the same zeal you did when you wrote the goal down 2 days ago, comes, and it will, that goal is like that autopilot, will keep you laser focused and help you manage the change. All right, so 2 things I think you should consider before setting your goals. Number 1, what can you be excellent at? I think every one of us has been given ability by God to be excellent in at least one specific area. Every one of us. I don't think there's an exception to that rule. I think we're blessed with a valuable and a special way to contribute. So what you need to do, if you haven't already done it, is find your area of excellence and then channel all of your energy and your passion into that one thing. But see, most people won't do that. They just live in mediocrity. They have a ho-hum job, a ho-hum career. They aren't really passionate. They're not excited about everything, and they're just living in mediocrity. Now, I don't think that defines anybody on a webinar at 8:33 at night talking about goal setting, getting prepared for the Transformation Challenge, and participating in a program like Iron Tribe. That's why I love working with you guys, because you are goal setters, you're action takers, you're doers. So figure out what you're excellent at, or if you already know, channel all your passions into that, because what happens is how well we like ourselves, how good we feel about ourselves, it's a vital determinant on how we do everything in life. Our interpersonal relationships, our health, our energy, our stress, it all goes back to self-concept. An amazing book written in the 60s by Maxwell Maltz called Cybernetics, excuse me. It was written by a surgeon, and he found that when he did the plastic surgery on the clients, sometimes when he changed someone's ugly nose or deformity, it completely changed their life. But oftentimes, it didn't change their life at all, and they couldn't even see the change because the picture in their mind never changed. So same phenomenon here, how we program our mind, focusing on excellence, it really does play out into everything. Relationships, energy, passion, confidence, self-concept at the end of the day. So if you're excellent at something, every morning when you get up and you see that guy or that girl in the mirror, you're seeing someone who's passionate and alive and really focused on being great at something. The alternative is just seeing someone who's kind of eking through life, mediocre at everything, and no passion. Do you know anybody like that? They're not that fun to be around. There's nothing that excites them, nothing that gets them going. So not only is there one thing I think you can be great at, I think it's got to be something that you love to do. I don't think you're going to have the energy and the passion and the time to pour into something if you don't love it. And that's just my personal opinion. So I think that kind of screams for the primary responsibility is for us to figure out what we love to do. And then what can we be excellent at that? And then pouring all our energy and resources into becoming excellent at what we love to do. So a lot of times I hear from people is, man, but I don't really know what I love. I mean, it's obvious for you, you're a fitness guy, you've always been a fitness guy, it must come easy. And so these next few points are for you. And if you don't know what that is, just think about this. What interests you? What attracts you? Even if you weren't paid for it, what do you do? Are you always drawing houses? What is it for you that you would do and it lights you up, whether you were paid or not? What do you think about most often? I know that was certainly my story when I started over with Iron Tribe. I mean, here I was in my 400 square foot garage, unair conditioned with a bunch of guys, and it was the best part of my day. And I thought, man, I feel so much passion about this. I want to start over and do this. I love this. And that's led to everything we've done with Iron Tribe so far. So listen to that. And then also know that opportunity, it usually is right in your own backyard, and in my case, literally in my backyard, but it's with your own talents, your own passions, but it does come disguised with work clothes on. You got to put work in when you figure this thing out. But it's usually right there, something you're already doing, some talent you already have. It's not like you got to go learn a new language or go get an MBA. Typically, it's right there under your nose. So we talked about, number one, being excellent. Number two is you need to have a balance of goals for a balanced life. 3 to 5 goals in 3 different categories. Now, I'll stop you right here. If you have never set goals, this may be a little overwhelming for you. Maybe you want to start with something really small. That's one thing I love about the Transformation Challenge. 40 days. I mean, anybody can do anything for 40 days. If you're a little more advanced, you've done this a few times, then I think you should go all the way. 3 to 5 goals in 3 different categories. This is what I use. Family and personal goals. I think it's the reason we do everything. Definitely personal goals are. And if you have a family, that's probably a big part of your personal goals. But it's important that the goals you set are important to you and not somebody else. Got to be personal. Number 2, business and career goals. Because here's the deal. You can have an amazing family, an amazing home life, but if you don't have some way to provide, people will come take your furniture. You got to do things. So you got to have financial and professional growth in your life at some level. So set goals there too. But inversely, don't just set goals there. I mean, so often that's the only place people set goals and they leave their family aside. Or number 3, they don't set any self-improvement goals. I think we should always look at ourselves as an ongoing project. So here's where I put my fitness goals. Here's where I put my spiritual goals. And here's where I set goals for how many books I'm going to read, how many info products or seminars I'm going to go to, or mastermind groups I'm going to be part of. That all goes in this category right here. So here's some questions that you should ask yourself before setting goals. Number 1, what 5 things do you value most in your life? Think about this. If you've never done it, this is a powerful process. What 5 things do you value most in life? Number 2, in 30 seconds, the quick list method. Just write down your 3 most important goals. Don't qualify it. Don't think about it. If I asked you right now, what are your 3 most important goals? You know what they are. They're deep in your subconscious. Write them down. Number 3, if you won $1 million today, which means you had no limits, no financial restraints, what would you do? It's interesting. Number 4, what would you do if you only had 6 months to live, if you knew you were going to die? Now here's the tricky part. 3 and 4 really should align with number 2. That'll kind of help you know if you're on the right track with this thing. Number 5, what have you always wanted to do, but you were afraid to fail? Remember that fear thing we talked about earlier. What would you do? Let's take fear off the table. What would you do? Write that down. 6, looking back at your life, What activities give you the greatest level of importance, mental well-being, and self-worth? When did you feel the best? When did you have the most passion? When was the best time in your life? Was it boot camp in the Marines? Was it football? Was it when you were on a team? Was it law school? I mean, think about what you were doing at that point in your life. And this could be a key indicator of what your personal level of excellence is. Number 7, what one great thing would you dare to dream if you knew you could not fail? Just a different version of number 5, but what would you dare to dream if you knew you couldn't fail? Number 8, I don't think I put this on your notes, but I believe you should pray and ask God what He would have you do with your life, with the passions and the resources and the talents that He's given you. What is His plan for your life? Because ultimately He wants to use that, no doubt about it. So you run through those questions, and what that'll give you, it'll help you understand what your great ambition is in life. And if you don't know what that is, I think it's high time to discover it and then go out and accomplish it. So once you write these things down, and trust me, it'll be a little bit scary, because when you take the brakes off and you don't judge and you just start setting goals, it can be a little exciting, but it can be a little scary too. But here's the deal. The fact you can visualize it and write it down means you can achieve it. It really does. It comes down to 3 things. How badly do you want it? Number 1. Are you willing to pay the price to get it? I talked about it comes disguised with work clothes on. I'm not talking about some ethereal process where you just write it down and it happens. You got to go out and make it happen. So how badly do you want it? Are you willing to pay the price? And finally, the only limitation is in your own mind. Man, it's this thing between our ears where we constantly tell ourselves all these self-limiting beliefs. Oh, it won't work out. Why does this always happen to me? I'm never smart enough. All those things limit us from achieving what I believe we can be excellent at, what God has created us to do. So, pick one major definite purpose as a result of these questions. And here's the great thing. Once you use this process, it gets easier and easier to use this in every aspect of your life to set bigger and more aggressive goals. It's like a muscle. I mean, the first time you did a thruster or a pull-up, think how sore you were and how hard it was. And now, the longer you're in the program, those movements become natural to you. Yeah, you still get a little sore, but bring it on. Thrusters 2 days in a row, oh, so what? Bring it on. That's how it is with goal setting. You get good at this stuff, and it gets exciting because you're like, man, what can I accomplish next? And then the really exciting part is when you can help someone else with the knowledge that you attain. And so just like I'm doing with you tonight, and I thank you for that privilege, you'll be able to do with others. So I think there's only 2 things that are required to be successful at anything. If you don't remember anything else from the talk tonight, remember these 2 things. Number 1, you've got to decide exactly what it is you want to accomplish. Decide literally means to cut off all other options, all other opportunities. This is what I'm going to do. Decide. Most people won't even get past that first step. We talked about it from the statistics. Number 2, determine the price that you will have to pay and resolve to do anything possible to pay it. So decide what you're going to do, determine the price, because there's always a price, and resolve no matter what, you're going to do anything to accomplish it. All right, so we're going to wrap up with this 12-step process. I challenge you to use this every year. This is the process I go through. I've got every one of my journals for the last, 12 years here, and I've used this process. What I love to do is I like to get out of my element. I typically go down to my parents' lake house. I'll review the year, read through my journal entries for the year, try to make at least one a week. That's an amazing process. A life worth living is a life worth recording. Socrates said that. So use this process. It's amazing. I challenge you to use a journal. And I think you'll accomplish more with this than anything you've ever experienced. And it's pretty simple, but it does take a little bit of work. So just run your goals through these 12-step filters. Number one, you got to have desire. It's the great motivator. I talked about this earlier. Your goal must be personal, and it must be something that you want for yourself. Otherwise, it won't create enough desire. So you can't have a goal for another person. You can't have a goal for your spouse. Man, I hope she finally does the family budget. That's not going to, it has to be something personal, something you have a deep desire, something that excites you. That's the starting place. Number two, belief. You got to believe that you can achieve the goal. If you write it down, and from the second you write it down, you think it's completely out of your league and you'll never accomplish it, it's not a good goal. However, it shouldn't be so easy that you accomplish it the next day. It should have about a 50-50 chance of even coming true. I call that a stretch goal. So on one hand, you got to have belief, but on the other hand, it's got to be something that stretches you. That, oh, I don't know, man. I'm really going to have to bust it to hit that goal. So you got to have belief. Number three, write it down. We've talked about that throughout the workshop tonight, and the vast majority will never do this. I hope the people, you guys on this webinar will do this. I know previous attendees of the workshop have done it because they've emailed me and told me that it's changed their life. Here's the deal. If it's not written down, it's just a wish. Writing the goal down is how you program the goal into your subconscious. And what I do, I take these journals, I set my goals every week. I review certainly every month, every quarter, where am I versus where I should be towards that goal. And just did a half-year review here, July 1st. 50% of the year is gone. 2013 is flying. So write these things down and then review them regularly. That's why I'm such a big fan of journals. Number four, determine how you will benefit. This is huge. You got to write out the benefits that you will receive from accomplishing the goal. And here's the deal. The more reasons, the better. And it will help increase desire and belief. So actually think about what's going to happen if I hit this goal. What will I experience? What will I believe? What will my self-concept be at that point? What will I gain? Write all those things out, and it's really going to help cement in your mind. And it gets back to what we talked about earlier, thinking and talking exactly about the person you want to be. So that'll help, determining how you will benefit. Number five, analyze where you are right now. We've all got a starting place. It may be really, really bad, but that's where you're starting. Or it may be better than it was, but you're still not satisfied, and you have that starting place. But you got to have that benchmark to compare to where you end up. How much you weigh, how much you earn, always that starting point. It's one thing I love about the Transformation Challenge. It's concrete. There's measurements. There's blood. There's timed workouts. Like, you know where you are on day one, and then you repeat it on day 40. And it gives you that tangible feedback. So analyze where you are right now. Number six, set a deadline. This is huge. Your goal should be measurable, definable, and accountable with a firm deadline of when it must be accomplished. Human nature, if we don't set deadlines, things don't get done. Again, Transformation Challenge, 40 days. You know what? It's long enough for results, but it's not so long that you're going to get overwhelmed. I mean, I'm always amazed how we generate the most testimonials, the most results during this focused 40-day period. And it's because we have a deadline. We're working harder. We're focused. We're 100% on the diet. It's amazing what we can accomplish. And guys, it's not just Transformation Challenge. This is applicable into every area of our life. But what I've seen is using that 40 days as a springboard for what you want to accomplish with the rest of your life. So many success stories, new careers, new confidence. I get some amazing testimonials. I got the greatest job on earth because I get to see and coach and hear you guys and what you've done as a result of getting in shape, setting goals, changing the trajectory of your life. It's amazing. All right, 7. Identify the obstacles that you will have to overcome. There are gonna be obstacles. You're going to sign up. You're going to start day one. You're going to get your measurements done, and then you're going to drive by Steel City Pops. It's going to happen. Or someone's going to deliver pizza, or obstacles come. I know multiple times for me, it seems like I always have a vacation scheduled right in the middle of the challenge, and I have to identify that obstacle up front, plan my food, and work around it. So identify your obstacles. Number 8, clearly identify the knowledge you will require to achieve the goal. Is there a book you need to read? Is there a seminar you need to attend? Do you need to come to Coach Whitney's nutrition seminar this Saturday and really sharpen your saw and dial in? Man, I want to get back on this thing and really understand what I should be eating and why and when and amounts, all that. That resource is available to you. Do you need to schedule a coaching assessment with one of your coaches and just sit down and say, I want to run through these 12 steps with you, make sure my goals are believable and that I can achieve this in 40 days. So figure out the information that you need. And number 9, hand in hand, identify the people and the groups whose cooperation and assistance you will need to accomplish your goal. So this is kind of back to getting those people around you who are goal setters, who are encouragers, who are motivators. Hang out with those people. We are a direct reflection of our peer group. So make sure you're putting people around you that are empowering you towards your goals. Number 10, take all the details from steps 7 through 9 and create a plan. Plan is just a fancy way of saying just a simple list of activities that you need to take laid out in terms of time and priority. Just start making a list of everything you need to do to accomplish this goal. And I love what Tony Robbins says. He says, never leave the sight of setting the goal without doing something towards its attainment. So this is concrete right here. You set the goal. All right, what do I need to do? I need to go to the grocery store. I need to throw away the ice cream. I need to throw away the beer, whatever it is. All right, number 11. We've talked about this. So important. Get a clear mental image of your goal as if it were already achieved. See it as done. Remember, I told you about the winners, the past winners of the challenge. Every one of them told me, I'm going to be your winner this year. And you know what I did, Forrest? I visualized myself as the winner. I visualized myself with the medal around my neck. This stuff worked. I can tell you in my own life, when I was really, I had a big goal, and I used this for a whole summer. Back in 2005, I sold one of my businesses. I decided I wanted to sell it and determined the price that I wanted to charge for it. And every morning that summer when I was doing my morning exercise, I visualized standing at the bank and cashing the check. And I visualized where I was going to stand, what teller I was going to be using, and what the amount was going to be. And it was pretty weird in August of that year when I was standing at the teller, cashing the check for the business, and I was just kind of blown away. Like, man, this is the scene I was playing in my head over and over all summer long. So visualize the goal as if it were already achieved. And finally, number 12, back up your plan with determination and persistence and resolve to never give up. Because even the best laid out plan will never work unless you do. You got to go out and execute, have belief in yourself, and dominate, crush whatever it is you set out to do. Now, I want to conclude with this. You could hear me say this, and I've been going almost an hour now. And you could say, or you could think, and I could see where you could think, man, Forrest believes that he's in charge of his own destiny. He creates his own future. And you know what? I don't fundamentally believe that. I fundamentally believe that we serve a God who created us and who guides our steps. One of my favorite verses, Proverbs 3:5-7. And it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. So I believe he will direct our paths, but I also believe he's given each of us resources, talents, a platform, and our job is to maximize those things, to be the good steward, if you know the parable from the Bible, is to be the good steward who comes back with interest with the money he was given. So The best way I found to do that is exactly what I'm teaching you guys tonight. So just didn't want you to leave this and think that I feel like I am you know, some guru that creates my own life. I don't fundamentally believe that. So I also want to give you guys some resources. Invariably, when I do this workshop, people ask me books to read or programs to purchase. So if you're thinking that tonight, here's a simple book that I think is pretty amazing. Darren Hardy wrote a book called The Compound Effect, and it's the power of small choices. It talks about jumpstart your income, your life, and your success. And basically it comes down to just the tiny decisions we make every single day that compound and, just like interest, continue to grow and grow and grow. So Darren, publisher of Success Magazine, that's a great book. Now he also has an audio program called Your Best Year Ever that is pretty good as well. It's more in depth, a bunch of CDs, a journal, a workbook. I recommend it though. It's pretty good stuff. And then also, you know, it's a classic, and it's an amazing stuff. Tony Robbins' Get the Edge is an amazing audio CD system that I've listened to multiple times, been to a few of his seminars, and I would definitely recommend that. And then I know it sounds funny and you might be laughing at your computer at me, but I got to tell you, man, Total Recall, Arnold's autobiography is amazing. So I've already talked about that. I'd highly recommend reading it. All right, so we're going to close with this. We started on time. We're going to finish on time. The last day to sign up for the Transformation Challenge and put all this stuff into use is tomorrow. And we got some pretty big bonuses this year. Number one, we're going to have 4 primary winners, and every one of them are going to receive a cruise for 2. So when you're doing your visualization, think about yourself tanning on the deck of the cruise boat. Number one, just for registering, you get 1 extra workout a week. So when you enter, pay your fee, you automatically get 6 extra workouts added to your account. So if you're a 3-day-a-weeker, come 4, 4 come 5. And also, if you get on the Inner Fire Grill plan, you can choose to go unlimited workouts for the 6-week challenge. Come twice a day if you'd like. Come every day if you like. We don't care. We want you to. Or if you don't have the ability to get in, you can also choose to apply a 10% discount to your food during this 6-week challenge. So a couple big options for you. A reminder, we got the nutrition workshop this Saturday, 9 to 12. You definitely want to attend that. Coach Whitney is amazing with her nutrition, and your feedback has been you've been wanting more assistance there, so we'll be having that this Saturday. And then blood work is coming up. Definitely check the websites for blood work, getting your measurements done, getting your before pictures taken. And then Monday will be the baseline. So that'll be the workout of the day. And if you're participating in the performance, we'll be doing something special off to the side. But if you're not participating, you can still come and do the workout. Guys, it's just a great opportunity to buckle down, get focused. I know I'm going to do it. It was one of the 2 of my 10 written goals for the year was to perform both transformation challenges full out. I'm excited about it. I actually started Monday. I wanted to get a jump start on it, so I had Lumen do my measurements on Monday. So I'm already a couple days into it, but and I can't win, so it doesn't really matter, right? I can't win the cruise at least. So anyway, thank you guys for joining me. It's been an hour. It's been a blast. I love this stuff. Hey, feel free to email me, Forrest at irontrapfitness.com. You can hit me up on Twitter at Forrest Walden. Would love to hear any of your feedback, answer any of your questions. Definitely want to hear your testimonials. Tell me what you did with this. Did you set go? You know, I've heard for the first time, you know, so many stories of people for the first time ever I set a goal, and then that led to this, and that led to this, and I love hearing that stuff. So send it to me. Here to serve. Want to help you, and you guys have a great night. And we'll see you tomorrow for the workout. I haven't even checked what the watt is yet, but I will be there with bells on. Thanks.